I'm back.
Okay.
Recently in chapter 168, we got another snapshot of Fuko's main goal for Loop 2. This ultimate union and the last 11 negators we need to accrue. A lot of familiar faces on that list and some we need to learn more about. However, the one people were most curious to see was obviously our boy, Unruin. Considering everything that went down last loop, I'm not surprised to see people confused to see Unruin up on that list. However, for Fuko to gather the strongest force possible to take down God, the Sun, Luna, and whoever else may be out there, we gotta get one of the strongest individuals we've seen in this entire series, and that is our boy Unruin. But still, what is this guy's backstory? Why is he a fanatic towards God? And what is that ability Unruin? Let's talk a little bit about all that today, because the theorize video still not ready, baby. I'm still working on the thumbnail. My apologies, but hey, I'm here with something else. Let's get into it. And real quick, the name is Darzus. This is the D trope. We make a lot of videos on a couple different series. Let us know if you want us to cover anything else.
It don't cost nothing to show it.
Would appreciate a like on this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you're new here, and comment for me if you can. What are your thoughts on Unruin? What is his ability, and how is Fuko gonna get him on our side this loop? So let's get the elephant out of the room, the most theoretical thing I believe in terms of talking about Unruin. What the heck is his negation ability? Looking at the definition of ruin, you'll see that it means the physical destruction or disintegration of something, or the state of disintegrating or being destroyed. Also, to reduce to a state of decay, collapse, or disintegration. Now, if you want to think about Unruin's ability as that literal definition, I wouldn't blame you, because that would kind of give credence to the fact that he is a parallel to Undead. If you look at their character designs, they're very similar looking. If you look at the scar Unruin has, and like the same scar that Andy has and everything, even the fact that they fight in very similar ways, using blood to coagulate into giant weapons and all that sort of junk, blasting everywhere and whatnot. Very similar people, and you can see that God, with his immense anger towards Andy, created this carbon copy version of himself. This version of Andy, which has the ability to regenerate, is potentially also immortal. A lot of things within Unruin just make him the perfect counter to Andy. And although Billy says this is the inferior version of Andy's ability, comprising it along with the two Umas, Blood and Shadow, makes Unruin a formidable force. If you go back and look during that Billy fight, you'll see that Blood and Shadow, along with Unruin's inherent capabilities, is a destructive trio. Like, nobody could handle him. Nobody could handle him. Tatiana, Billy, freaking Andy, Fuko, all four of them were right there fighting off against him for just a second. I know that Andy and Fuko had to go down to the room, but still, they couldn't defeat Unruin completely. Billy literally was loading up the clip.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal. Don't pull out the 9.
Called people on his phone in order to gain more abilities, and nobody could defeat this guy. A hard-boiled character. If you want to look at his ability as that, pairing it with the other two Umas, it would make sense how we get such a strong character. However, my one theory on the ability Unruin comes in a more meta way, because if you're an Undead Unluck fan, you obviously know a lot of the abilities are extremely meta. Think of the ability Unluck, completely meta. It's all based on luck, whatever is possible in the cosmos, just occurring in a bad way. Unruin's ability could be something just like that. Not sure what chapter it is, I'll put the image on the screen, but Unruin speaks about ruining the dreams of other individuals, and the fact that no matter what happens to Fuko, there's just nothing in the realm of reality that can stop Ruin. And I think it could be something that meta, that crazy, because if God really sent down a regulator, him and Seal, two of the strongest entities, to just hold off the Union and hold off all the negators pushing back against Ragnarok, it would make sense that he doesn't just make him a stronger, more cracked up version of Undead. And it's even funny to mention that, because if you go back and look in this fight with Billy literally pissed him off so bad that he got Unruin from him, because he told him that you're nothing more than just an inferior version of Andy. And if we take a look back at chapter 97, I think one particular page kind of gives credence to my thought that his ability is more meta than letting something not deteriorate or ruin or spoil or whatever. Unruin's sitting out in the sun, and blood turns itself into a parasol. And blood does this because if the sun touches Unruin's skin, it starts to melt. It starts to peel away and just kind of melt off like a vampire. And obviously as we get to, as I think what his backstory will be, maybe he's a vampire, maybe he's on some Muzan Gibu TG type stuff. However, that doesn't really matter right now. Hammer home that fact. If he is Andy, then maybe an inferior version, truly an inferior version of Andy. Still, if he's Unruin, the like not being able to deteriorate, all that junk, how would his body just peel away in the sunlight? Huh? Even if it still grows back, maybe it is, as he alludes to, the sickness which he has. Still, why would he be able to ruin himself, like his body ruins, if he's Unruined? I think it's got to be a meta ability, because still, especially in combat sense, that's the strongest crap in the world. To not be able to ruin Unruin's dreams and his fanaticism towards God, I think that makes him a much more formidable foe than just being a cracked up version of Andy with 2 Umas on him instead of 1 Uma on him. And a quick little side note before we go into his backstory, I love the fact that Uma Blood pairs up with Ruin the same way that Clothy pairs up with Andy. Some cute stuff. So in terms of his backstory, all we know about Unruin is that he's a fanatic towards the sun. He's got this sun tattoo on his chest, and he seems to be a member of some cult of some sort. Maybe the cult of the Firehawk. Shout out my Borderlands 2 gang. However, that's his kind of shtick. That's the reason why he is so in love with God, and the reason why he blindly follows God's orders. In Billy's words, brown nose is the fool. But being a fanatic, sort of a cultist, leads me to an interesting thought. Many people, if you look into, cults and all that sort of junk, join these sort of organizations whenever they're at a very vulnerable period in their life, or if they are just a very vulnerable individual. And I think Unruin, being this sort of cocky, bombastic individual who presumably in other loops, and not presumably, has been stated too in other loops, have not too affected anything. I imagine that beforehand, up until, this later stages in the loops that we reached last loop, Unruin was nothing but a young, sick man. If you are a Demon Slayer fan, that's the only way I'm going to explain it. Something like Muzan Kibutsuji. Sorry for the spoilers if you didn't get there. Muzan Kibutsuji had a disease before he became a demon, which wouldn't let him go outside. He couldn't touch the sunlight, whatever the heck. Same thing, bro. Is Unruin the same way, or was he even a vampire? Because Undead Unluck has always had a lot of spooky stuff in it, and the fact that Unruin and Seal were kind of paired up, a mummy and a vampire, it would make a lot of sense, right? You know what I mean? So I could see, especially living in that gigantic castle, like some Transylvania type stuff, Unruin could be have or be some sort of vampire, and maybe he was even the leader of a cult who worshipped him, and he turned his worship towards the sun as that cult stopped worshipping him or something. Maybe. I have no idea. Dang, I may have just figured out his backstory. But let's move on to this loop. What's gonna happen? Because, this video may be getting long, and I don't feel like editing a bunch of stuff. What's gonna happen with Fuko getting him? That's the craziest question to think about, because what happened last loop? Unruin off Fuko, and that was a very pivotal, very emotional point for not only us readers, but everybody within the series, obviously. And it's going to be tough for Fuko, although she is the most, sympathetic, empathetic, hard-boiled woman out there, to get over that hump of, linking up with your abuser. Literally, man, that's a very contemporary conversation, no? That's a contemporary thought. Seriously, it's gonna be weird trying to get him on our side, and I wonder how we're going to get him on our side. I imagine the only way is to get to that backstory, see if he's always been a fanatic towards God, or if God reached out to him in a time of vulnerability and turned him towards him, gave him this negation ability and said, put all your faith, all your trust into me. You know what I mean? I don't know, though. Unruin. Super interesting character, and I really want to see what happens to him and how we get him on our side. Especially because, I didn't maybe hammer this home enough, but he's genuinely really hard-boiled. Whenever I would talk about it last year, I would always say, dog, Seal and Unruin, we were wiping the floor with them if we really needed to fight them. But I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Ruin is really freaking strong, and even Seal, on a good day, is wiping off a lot of Negators. I don't know how you're going to defeat Ruin or get him on our side, but I think his arc in particular is going to be one of the highlights of the second loop, because not only the emotional sides of Undead Unluck, but the plot-wise, we're going to get a lot of intricate, very interesting information during that point. But right now, dog, we're going to school, and right now, I need to edit this video and do some other stuff, so shit. Hasta luego.